So, what is the best Studio Ghibli film of all time? Is it Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Kaguya, Spirited Away, or perhaps it's something that I haven't even mentioned? For a few decades, Ghibli has so effectively dominated the animation studios that its style and its simplistic drawings are actually synonymous with anime throughout the world. And when I say throughout the world, I really mean not just Japan, not just Asia, but in other places, whether it's European countries, American countries, or Middle Eastern countries, Studio Ghibli has a cultural presence and a cultural footprint. So in this podcast, we do a number of things. We talk about things like nostalgia, how Miyazaki uses certain machines, and also we rank our favorite films. That's right, we'll be ranking every single Ghibli film that we've ever watched, along with one of my best friends, Nathan, who is also a big fan of Ghibli, and we've gone to Japan together. We've even visited the Studio Ghibli Museum together. So whether you're a small-time anime fan or a die-hard Ghibli fan or somewhere in between, I think this podcast is something for everyone, and I think you'll enjoy it.
My first Ghibli film, I think, was in 2010, and it was actually introduced to me in our English class. And I remember that.
But when you say "ow," who was that English teacher?
Sorry. When I say our, I'm sort of talking about me and the person that I'm about to reference.
Okay.
Yeah, the English teacher told us that, for our related text or something like that, we shouldn't choose anime or any sort of animation like,
is this
like
who I
Dragon
think
Ball
it
Z.
is? Is this Mr. C?
It is Mr. C. Anyway, regardless.
It was year 11 because
Yes.
that same time, by the way, for anyone listening, I went through a huge two-pack phase. Like just overwhelming two-pack phase. And for my related text, I wanted to do Dear Mama. Firstly, I just wanted an excuse to listen to
Great
Tupac.
song.
Great song.
Word.
Rest in peace.
Big ups.
I really wanted to choose Dear Mama for a few reasons. Firstly, I just wanted the social clout of saying I did two-pack for my HSC. Apart from that, I just thought it was like relevant, like family, belonging, etc., etc. But then Mr. C came out and he said no anime and no hip hop. And that hip hop comment was exclusively aimed at me.
Yeah. So yeah, it was actually my first Ghibli movie was Princess Mononoke, and that was only shown to me because our good friend Lance, he wanted to do Princess Mononoke, so he was really pissed off, and he was like, "Man, I really wanted to do this movie." Sorry,
but he wasn't in our class. I'm surprised. He wasn't even in our class. So
yeah. I told him that we shouldn't be doing these type of things, and then he was pretty disappointed. He also introduced me to Full Metal Alchemist, but that's a tale for another time.
That's true. Did I introduce Lance to anime, or am I just trying to claim social clout when I don't?
You know what? For the purpose of this podcast, I reckon you did.
Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're the best, dude. I love you, man.
And we originally pitched this as media that shaped us. And originally, I wasn't sure if Studio Ghibli had actually shaped us. Do you think it has shaped you? And I say this because, if I compare it to other pieces of media that I love and I've consumed before, such as Avatar would be like an obvious pick, or Berserk or something like that. To me, I feel like Ghibli, whilst important, there was a bit of hesitancy for me to say that it had actually shaped me. But at the end of the day, I was like, no, I think it has. But what do you think? Do you think it has shaped you?
I think it has, honestly. After watching Princess Mononoke, it sort of changed my perspective on anime because, like I said before, I didn't really watch anime until I was introduced to the Studio Ghibli movies and Full Metal Alchemist. Mm-hmm. But it really showed to me that anime as a medium It is really powerful when it's done well. And I think that all the Ghibli movies are, well, except for Tales of Earthsea, I think they're all done really well and they have really great themes. And, as a very sort of receptive teenager, it really had an impact on me and it really shaped, I guess, my idea of, I guess, harmony with the people around me, with the environment. I think that is a very big overarching theme. I think we'll talk about that later.
Mhm.
But yeah, just to answer your question, I think it did. I think it did sort of shape some of my ideals.
And that was somewhat of the conclusion that I came to. So originally there was some hesitancy because I could name other franchises, other media outlets, other artists that had more of an impact on me. But I think overall it has had an influence and it has shaped us. And I bring up two examples, whether it's visiting the Ghibli Museum, which is what we did in Japan. We did that together. Or I've actually seen Joe Hisayashi live in
You
Melbourne.
did. Yes, I
And
remember.
so, yeah, we've actually visited Studio Ghibli's museum. And what did you think about it? I found it very aesthetic, which is that's honestly an obvious comment, but I found it very. I want to say beautiful, but I feel like that doesn't really tell that much. So, what was your reaction to the museum?
Okay, so my first reaction was, "Wow, we're at the Ghibli Museum finally,"
My
and it's
second reaction was like, "Yo, where's Miyazaki? Yo,
yeah.
Miyazaki, where you at?"
Come out of the bushes, man. Bro, it was like an hour away from Tokyo, I remember, by
Mhm,
train. It was
mhm.
so far away. So just the reward of finally getting there, that was my first reaction.
Did we want to go to this museum in our first trip to Japan?
We did, but we booked it way too late, or we tried to book it too late and they ran out of
Mhm.
tickets. So yeah, I guess the second reaction was, yeah, let's rip this joint up. Let's look at every nook and cranny, see if there's any like Easter eggs. There were none. But I don't know, I feel kind of disappointed by the museum itself,
Oh, why
like
so?
just physically. I enjoyed every single facet of what was inside, what was in the books that we saw, like in the photo frames. But I just thought the museum was just so small. But I think in a
Mm,
way it's charming,
mm.
So yeah, it did have its charm, and I can definitely appreciate that more in hindsight. But yeah, I really loved it. I really loved it because you get to see all the concept drawings of our favorite movies, and yeah, it was just wonderful all up. How about you, man?
Yeah, they really went for the cozy, charming aesthetic, which I guess it fits the Studio Ghibli mindset or the Studio
Mm,
Ghibli aesthetic much more than if it was like
mm.
grandiose. I feel like Miyazaki, if anyone's actually watched his films, and by the way, just to clarify, it's not just Miyazaki. He's definitely the face of the studio, but there are people who are not Ghibli, oh, sorry, who are not Miyazaki, other directors, and I think his son is actually a director as well.
Yes, he
So
is. Mm.
so yeah, but if you've actually watched any of his films, you'll see a lot of like cottages, a lot of like small villas, and
Mm.
that's what he gravitated towards. So I feel like it was a grandiose, like off the top of my head, the Museum of London, for example, where they have like
Oh.
Roman pillars and Roman statues and stuff like that. That just
Hmm.
wouldn't fit the aesthetic. So overall, I sort of wish it was bigger, but
Mm.
hey, it was aesthetic enough. And like I said, I also watched Joe Hisayashi live in Melbourne with a friend of mine,
Oh,
and
yeah.
honestly, brought me to tears multiple
It
times.
would have been so good. I actually regret. I mean, you asked me to come, but I think
Why didn't you come?
at the time I had, other commitments, got, my kids.
Oh yeah, those kids. Oh yeah, I see.
Hey,
Oh
shut
yeah,
up.
Reynolds, Reynolds. I
Shut up,
love
back up.
Reynolds.
Yeah, I think I was just hesitant to travel. I don't know why, because I
Are you
kick
afraid of
myself
heights?
oh, yeah, I mean, watching The Wind Rises, it really made me scared of planes. So couldn't catch one of those boys.
I feel.
Yeah, I am so envious of you that you saw the master in the flesh.
Mm.
Um,
Fun
yeah,
fact about Joe Hisayashi
mhm,
is okay. I guess it might be because I haven't been to a lot of concerts. I feel
mhm.
like I've been to like 8 or 9. I'm not sure if that's a big number, but he did
That's
something
solid,
that
man.
is it? Is that a lot? Okay.
I reckon, yeah, it's a decent amount of gigs.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
You heard that first. I've been to a lot of concerts. And Joe Hisayashi, he did something that I've never seen anyone do to the same extent. So we all know what
Hmm.
the encore is. For anyone who doesn't know or hasn't been to a concert, it's when the artist does their final song and then he or she pretends to walk out and the audience is supposed to
Like
play into
encore. Yeah.
exactly, into the gig,
One more song.
encore, and then the artist comes back, and then everyone explodes and does one more final song, etc., etc.
Mm.
Joe Hisayashi did 3 encores.
This guy.
I'm not exaggerating. He did 3, and the third time he came out, like the crowd was so exasperated at that point. Like I remember this guy in front of me. He's like, "What? Again?" And then, and yeah, legitimately, like it was
Yeah.
actually bizarre. He walked off with his whole, like he walked off with his troops, with his band, his troops, and then we gave him an applause. Comes back on as it was supposed to because of the encore. He leaves
Hmm.
again. He comes back on. I'm like, oh, encore part 2. And then once he leaves for the second, after the second encore, we're like, oh yeah, surely that's it. And he comes back on, and we're like, no way.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I actually feel like he misread the room because it was like it, it was actually strange.
He's just never gonna leave.
Yeah, at that point, like I remember looking over to my friend to
Yo,
Giorgio.
Joe.
I was like, "Yo,
Yeah.
like, what are you doing, man? You're back again already?" Anyway, so but all that combined, I guess I would have to agree with the sense that Ghibli has had an influence.
Of
Maybe
course. Mm.
maybe that isn't as much as like Avatar or Pokemon, for example, but it still has had an influence. So I want to transition to that, and then at the beginning of this, sorry, before this podcast, I actually spoke to you and said I wanted to rank our Ghibli films from
Okay. Yeah.
S tier. So the ranking is
Okay.
S. Why is it
Yep.
S? Like, have
S
you ever
is
thought
like
about that?
it's like a JRPG thing. If you've
Or
ever
what does
played
it
Final
stand for?
Fantasy, mate, you're barking up the wrong tree. I reckon it's like super.
Superb.
Yes,
Honestly,
yeah.
this is probably egotistical, but when I saw S, I'm like Stanley.
Stanley.
Yeah. Stanley rank.
That's the bottom, man.
So there's ST, which is the top,
Mm.
and under that there's A, then there's B, and then C, D, E. So once again, S, A, B, C, D, E, with S being the best, and then E being
Okay.
the bottom. I really want to emphasize S is the top.
Can we do an
So
end tier or not?
so let's go through tier by tier. Like we'll talk. I'll say like S, and then you tell me what's in your S, and we compare it, and we'll see which films we've watched, which films we
Okay.
haven't watched. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's go S tier. What films are
Could
in
I
your S tier?
suggest like a slight tweak?
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
So I have the list of Ghibli films,
Mhm,
like the Wikipedia page in front of me,
mhm,
and they're sorted automatically by the year that they were published. So the first
mhm,
one is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So do
mhm.
you think it would be beneficial for us to go chronological order and then assign a rank, or go rank and then assign the movie?
The only issue with going chronological, and I
Hmm.
want to hear your counter to this, is if we go
Hmm.
chronological, there's a lot of films that I haven't watched chronologically.
Okay, fair enough.
Or
Yeah.
like there's a lot of films. For example, actually, this is a film that I wanted to get to. Actually haven't. I've seen a lot of Ghibli, but I haven't seen Nausicaa. So I wouldn't even
Oh,
be able
okay.
to rank where Nausicaa was.
Okay, right. Okay. I'm not trying to be elitist, but get good, scrub.
um,
Okay, let's start with S tier then.
cool. Well,
Okay.
who do you have in your SD?
I feel like this is like an NBA draft, like starting five. For me, I'm not sure if you agree, but S tier would be Princess Mononoke.
Oh yeah, I mean that was an obvious pick. Like that's my
Okay.
favorite out of all. Do you have any
Oh.
others? Like Mononoke
Um.
is the only one I have in SD. So do you have any others?
Oh, okay. I'm not even ashamed to say, but I enjoy Kiki's delivery service so much. I think more than the average Kiki's delivery service enjoyer. It's like the Chad and the yeah. So I think I would put that in my own personal S tier.
No,
But
I mean
you're
this
free to
is
disagree.
no. This is when I say this is like comparison. This is
Hmm.
strictly your tier list, And so it
Oh,
honestly doesn't matter. Like we don't have to
okay.
come to a singular or uniform
Hmm.
understanding. If you want to put in your SD, that's completely fine.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah, so
cool.
that's my S
So
tier so far.
okay, well then let's go to A tier. I have
Okay.
Spirited Away, and I only have one Spirited Away. Do you have any others?
I'm just looking at the list of movies. There are some that I haven't seen, but I think Castle in the Sky for me,
Mm-hmm.
Laputa.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I think, probably their second movie under the Ghibli name, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That one was directed and screenwritten by the master himself, Hayao San. Yeah, so I would put
Wait,
Castle in the Sky in eight.
your first
Oh
name
yeah,
basis with
me and this
Miyazaki.
guy go way back, dude. He animated my birth. Like yeah, so Castle in the Sky, and I would put Spirited Away up there as well.
Mhm.
This is such a wonderful film and so charming.
Definitely, very very
Mm.
charming. I think for a while it was the most. It earned the most revenue
Yes, for an
for
anime
animated
movie.
film. I think
Hmm.
so. I
Yes,
think that's since been passed by Your Name
and
and
that's been surpassed now
by
by Demon Slayer
not surprised.
Mugen Train movie. I think that's what it's called. It's about the train in the somewhere in the storyline. But yeah,
Right.
it's been surpassed by.
You
Oh, sorry, Your
you've
Name has
actually
been
watched
surpassed.
or you've read Demon Slayer, right?
Yeah, yeah, I read Demon Slayer. It was really. Uh,
Good
I,
or not
I
good?
think it's great,
Oh,
but
it's great.
it might it's great, but I think it might be a bit overrated. The ending is just trash. So sorry, listeners who enjoy Demon Slayer's ending. I think we'll be at odds if we ever meet in person. I hope we don't.
Cool. Okay, well let's go to the B tier. I
Okay.
have a few in this tier, so
Hmm.
but I'll throw it to you first. Who do you have in this tier?
Okay. Sorry if you hear clanging in the background. It's my son pouring pouring some tea. Um, B tier. I have Howl's Moving Castle.
Me too.
Controversial. And then I also have The Wind Rises.
Me too.
Oh, we got the same list.
We reading from the same
You
piece of
copying me?
paper.
I've actually got Stanley open in another window. He's sending me his pics. Yeah, so I think I only have two there. Oh, wait. No. I got to put Nausicaa in there, actually,
Mhm.
because Nausicaa is definitely not a C. So, three Nausicaa, Howl's Moving Castle, and The Wind Rises.
Mhm.
And my
Okay.
B tier. Yeah.
Well, firstly, I just want to say the amount of this is a weird comment, but the amount of Twitter girls I know that are in love with Hal is
Oh,
actually like
mate.
overwhelming. Firstly,
I think he's like the ideal anime boyfriend
he is.
aesthetic.
I mean, 100%. He's
Yeah.
basically animated. He's the animated version of the what's that guy from June with the sharp jawline? Timothy Jawline.
Oh, Timothy
Yeah, Timothy
Chalamet.
Jawline. So he's
Yeah, whatever you said, jawline.
he's basically that guy, like
Yeah,
quirky, eccentric, but like absurdly good looking
I'm
and
like dark on the inside, turns into a bird at night. Yeah, definitely.
it's basically the vampire trope with blonde hair. But yeah,
True.
Howl's Moving Castle, I have that in the B tier. I have Whisper of the Heart. I
Oh,
have
okay. Yeah.
Grave of the Fireflies.
Mm-hmm.
And I have The Wind Rises in my B tier.
Right. Interesting that you have two like wartime movies in the B tier. And
Have you watched Grave of the Fireflies?
I have. I watched it in year 12, actually. I was going to choose it as my related text, just
Oh.
despite Mr. C. I ended up not. How
What did you
childish of
choose?
me.
Out of
I
curiosity, what did you end up choosing?
Okay. I chose this really great Australian fiction novel.
Neighbors?
Yeah. um, look, I actually can't remember what it's called anymore.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah,
It
it
must be
really had an
really
impact on
good.
me. It was quite memorable, as you can tell.
I'm pretty sure I chose. I think I
Didn't
prepared
you choose
two.
Brum? Brum the
Brum.
car?
I don't even know what Brum the car is, but it sounds funny.
Okay.
I, I chose Shawshank Redemption and
Nice.
12 Angry Men.
Very good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We got style out here for sure.
Oh my god. Okay. Moving on.
So my C tier, I'll start first. So for my C tier, I have these four films, I think. Okay,
Mhm.
controversial. I love Kiki's delivery service
Mm.
aesthetic. I find it to be
Okay.
so beautiful. And that's actually something
Mm.
I'll keep coming back to with Ghibli.
Yep.
Kiki's delivery service is like stunning. Like
Mm.
every picture, every painting is so soft and comfortable and warm. But I actually found it to be somewhat boring as a narrative.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had in City, I had Princess Kaguya, Ponyo,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Kiki's, and Totoro.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about Totoro.
Where would you put Totoro then?
Oh, look, I think would you say that Totoro is like the most popular Ghibli film or the most well known?
No,
So
that'd be
I
Spirited
think
Away.
yeah, the most popular is definitely Spirited Away because I think it was the first film to really come to the West. But everyone knows
The
what
bus.
Totoro looks like, and
Yeah,
the cat bus. Yeah,
I think that's because
yeah.
it's the
It's the
logo.
logo. Yeah. Actually, yeah, you got a good point. I totally forgot that. Okay, yeah, your picks are pretty good.
Well, where would you put Totoro then? I don't think you've answered that.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't answer. Like B minus, C,
Okay,
C plus. I think
so
for me
relatively
it was
close
really
to mine.
wholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think C tier without saying C tier, but like just not good enough to be up in the B's. I think
Hmm.
it was very warm and nostalgic. I think
Hmm.
because it was just all about the kid's imagination and
Hmm.
coping with the mum not being there,
Hmm.
and it really just like hit me hard in year 12. But yeah, I agree with the C tier pick for Totoro. Yeah.
And so, do you have any in the D or E tier? Because I have
Oh,
none.
okay, bruh. Hold on. We're about to start this record over. Y'all get some y'all get some drinks. Let me rip the asshole out of Tales of
Oh my
Earthsea.
god! Wait,
Okay.
is that the witch one?
There is a witch in Tales from Earthsea. It was the first film directed and written by Miyazaki's son, Goro.
Hmm.
And look, I think that the animation is great because it's a Ghibli film. I mean, it's always
Hmm.
going to be sort of S tier, but the story, man, the story, dog, it's just like it's so incohesive, and I don't think that they did the source material. They basically, I think Goro did it dirty, man. Like, it's very just like jumping everywhere. I don't remember any of the characters' names. Like, they don't develop any sort of personality. And at the end, it's very sort of somber film as well. But it's not supposed to be a somber film. Is the point?
Okay, why wasn't it supposed to be a somber film?
Well, I mean, it's an adventure, and it's about this young guy setting out on a journey to save the princess. That's that type of stuff with the help of an elderly archmage. I love that word, archmage, and I
so,
love his name.
so
Hita.
basically, every this is every like medieval story ever.
It's kind of like Super Mario the movie,
Hmm.
but the archmage is named Sparrowhawk. That's pretty sick, right? I was
Oh,
like,
that is very
man,
cool.
this sounds dope. Like, let's go. But at the end, I was like, I just want to go home, man. Like, it ain't great. So yeah, probably E tier for Tales from Earthsea.
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Tales of Earthsea enjoyers. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure we will be at odds, but I hope we don't meet in person.
So you have nothing in D.
Yeah.
That means
Oh, I got one. Oh, Pom Poko. Have you have you seen that one?
is that the possum one? Raccoon?
Yes, they are raccoons. But they're actually tanukis, Japanese raccoon dogs.
Wait, what? Is that like
So,
a special
so
breed in Japan?
no,
Like
no,
what?
no. Okay, so a tanuki in Japanese folklore, they're considered like a magical creature. I'm not sure if
Mm.
you've heard of like a kappa or stuff like that,
Is
but
a
they're
cap is like the water demon, right?
yes, with the leaf on its head. So anyway,
Okay.
tanuki raccoons essentially that can shapeshift. And I think actually, you know what, this belongs in C tier, not D tier. Sorry, Pompogo. It's actually quite charming now that I think of it.
Hmm.
It's about the progressive deforestation that's happening,
Yes.
and the humans, they are about to destroy this tanuki's forest, right?
Oh,
So
so Mononoke. All right. So we're Mononoke
yeah,
2.0.
we out there. We're right there now. So yeah, these tanukis with their shapeshifting ability, they're not supposed to interfere with humans, but they've taken it to the next level now, and they're just causing mischief and havoc. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was a fun movie, but plot wise, it was definitely not as deep or as thematic as Mononoke. Well, I mean, like you're saying, yeah. So that's probably my only D or C.
Mononoke is, to me, my favorite Ghibli film by far, and it might not be fair to compare it to that because it just sets the standard so high, and the music and just the visuals. It's just
Mm,
stunning.
mm.
But let's move on to the other part of this, which is something I told you beforehand. If you could recommend one film, and I already told you the one I was recommending, so you had to choose something else.
Ah,
Um,
damn it.
I'm
Yep.
assuming it's the one that you really like and that you put in A tier anyway. I am going to recommend for anyone who hasn't watched a film from this studio, I will be recommending Spirited Away. Now, that's kind of an obvious pick, and I didn't recommend Princess Mononoke, even though I think Princess Mononoke is better. I think Spirited Away is a film where you can really turn on and let anyone watch it, and then they would
Mm,
enjoy it. I think
mm,
Princess Mononoke, it's a little darker, which I like. It's a little more intense and serious, which I like as
mm.
well. But I think if you want a gateway into Ghibli, I think Spirited Away is just so pleasant and so appealing to everyone that I just think it's almost the perfect gateway.
Hmm.
So,
Definitely agree.
what do you think? So if you could recommend sell a Ghibli film to people who haven't watched any Ghibli,
Oh, okay.
what would you
Yep.
sell?
So you were right, I think. I guess we'll confirm that in a couple seconds. The film that I would recommend is also not Mononoke because I think Mononoke is something that you need to discover by yourself, man. Like,
Oh my god.
you need to be like half drunk by yourself on a Sunday night and just looking for something to watch on Netflix and then watch Mononoke.
Is that the best day to watch Princess Mononoke? Half drunk?
Oh, I mean, it's either that or watching it in a forest. So my pick is Castle in the Sky.
Oh, that was not what I
Um,
expected. I thought you'd choose
oh,
Kiki.
okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. I think they have kind of similar vibes. Kiki it's more, about her story of adapting and fitting in as a witch and, as a normal kid. But with this movie, Castle in the Sky, I mean, I guess the only thing that they have in common is flight. um, but yeah, I just love Castle in the Sky because when I watch it, I feel like I'm just buckling in for like an adventure. I think the phrase to describe it would be a swashbuckling adventure
Hmm.
because it's even got pirates in it,
Oh,
or
okay.
like air pirates, I guess. And it's just a fun film. I think it's like the colliding of two worlds. You have the boy. Oh, what's his name again? Pazu. You have Pazu, the boy, who is sort of the town rascal, but is also quite well respected by the townspeople. He knows everyone there, and he lives in a very small town. And then you have Sheeta, who's an orphan who's abducted by the government, and she is, I guess, the last descendant of this mythical civilization. And they meet and they go on a big adventure, avoiding the bad guys, making new friends, using the power of that
Friendship.
mythical civilization. I guess you could call it that. Let me just ask my boy Miyazaki what he thought. Um, and yeah, it's just a really fun film to watch, and I think that the payoff and also the score is just so wonderful. At the very start of the movie, the it's one of those movies where they do the like a long roll opening credit scene. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
the best.
Yeah, I love those, right? Because in that they have like this really well animated or stylistically animated lore, like LORE, of that mythical civilization. And it shows them, they started on the ground, they found the power of the crystal, and then they all left the ground to live in the air. And then
Mm.
it shows, their downfall. And then at the very, like the crescendo of that opening credits roll, Sheeta, I think the crystal just like ignites and it's just like it's crazy. And that really just drew me in to stay for the whole thing because I was just like, where's this gonna go? So yeah, I think Castle in the Sky is, I mean, I'm frothing over it right now. And you're probably wondering why didn't he put it in S tier, the dumb but I think S tier is reserved for Mononoke. And Castle in the Sky is a close second.
I just building on what you said in terms of music. There are a few things in most Ghibli films that are a staple, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's beautiful visuals. And
Mm-hmm.
this can vary slightly. Ghibli has an obvious style. Anyone who's actually watched a few Ghibli films will be able to tell the Ghibli style. But even when they differentiate from that, from things such as Princess Kaguya, which is noticeably different,
Mm.
or even I think there was a film called Only Yesterday, I think, where the visual style is slightly different as well. But the visuals and the music staples, and they are really beautiful a lot of the times. And for anyone who hasn't watched a Ghibli film or hasn't really listened to a lot of the music, I just recommend. There's a lot I can recommend, but just going on YouTube and searching up the Bygone Days, Porco Rosso.
Mm. Oh, oh,
Just
Porco Rosso.
I've never watched
I'm
it. So have
sorry.
you watched it?
Oh, I have watched it. I sort of skipped over it because it and Pombo released 2 years apart. So in my mind, I'm just like, oh yeah, they're probably like the same movie or something. That's very disrespectful. I'm sorry. Porco Rosso is a wonderful film.
Okay,
It
A,
is.
B, S. What do you have?
I would actually say it's probably a low A. Yeah, Bygone Days, beautiful song. It sort of evokes that, jazzy though bluesy, like bar and like the roaring 20s, that sort of vibe, even though it's not an exciting song. It has that, I guess, the emotions and the themes of that era. And I think that it it's probably the best part about that movie, other than the female lead. We stay getting bacon. um, Look, Theo, like Fio, she's the female lead. She is just wonderful. She's not as stubborn as, San from Princess Mononoke, but she's, sassy and she's independent and she wants to be a mechanic and she helps out Pigman in his sort of adventures that he has in this like peninsula. Porco Rosso is just a wonderful film. I highly recommend watching that as well.
Okay, cool. Let's move to something that I actually didn't tell you about. So I sent you
Oh.
images, or I let you know like some things I wanted to talk about. But there was one
Mm-hmm.
section I purposely skipped out because I wanted to get your live reaction.
Oh
And
god.
this is what this is what I wanted to say. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was listing the Ghibli films that I liked, for example, like Princess Mononoke or Spirited Away being the S and A tier respectively, I noticed
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of films in the B and C tier. For example,
Mm.
Wind Rises was a B, Ponyo was a C. Films like that. Princess Kaguya was also a C.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Ghibli films that I've watched that ended up in that mid section where it was enjoyable, but it wasn't like an overwhelming, outstanding visual
Mm.
experience.
Mm.
And this is what I believe, and I'd like to get your reaction. I think Ghibli films, more than being great films, usually, and obviously we have the exceptions such as Mononoke, but usually I think what they do best, rather than being like a great story, is they invoke nostalgia to an extent that I've never seen really any other piece of medium do so. And I think a lot of its
Mm.
power comes from its ability to be nostalgic more than be an amazing piece of story. So, what do you think about that?
I partially agree. I definitely think that nostalgia plays a lot into what I think of the films, especially
Hmm.
because I kind of watch them all at the same time, right?
Hmm.
And they, in the back of my mind, they remind me of, the happy days of being young and
Hmm.
childless. I think I also agree with, the stories might not be that great, but I think they really use animation as a medium to tell a really capturing story. I think that's the word that I want to say. But I think that sense of, wanting to see more, that is rooted in my love for the style of animation, which then goes back to the nostalgia angle. So in a way, I think you mentioned it before, but the Ghibli style is recognizable like anywhere. Characters that are drawn or animated now, because Earwig and the Witch was actually CGI, they all look like they're from that universe. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So as soon as something Ghibli related pops up in front of me, I'm almost predisposed to just be like, oh my god, it's Ghibli, yeah. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
come on, kids, like gather around me. Yeah, I think to me that they are important films because they represent different aspects and definitely the nostalgia of that time in my life that I watched them. But yeah, I think the fact that a lot of them end up in like sort of like a normal distribution, do you know, like a bell curve? They all end
Hmm.
up in the middle, or
Hmm.
most of them end up in the middle. I think that is just a it's not a problem that they all have, but I think it's almost a good thing because it means that you can enjoy them without the pretense of them being or supposed to be like excellent. Do you know what I mean?
See that
Although
that
this
like
opinion might
dip,
be different to how other people view.
what just a few things on that. Firstly, when I mean it was nostalgic, I don't only mean the fact that a lot of these films are watched by younger children. So when they grow up, they think because it's so palatable and it's so accessible, and there's no like obvious violence or obvious evil. Maybe apart from like Grave of the Fireflies or something, but generally when you put on a Ghibli film, you're like, okay, my 6-year-old child can watch this. But the thing, when I mean nostalgic, I don't only mean that we watch it as a young age and then in our adult years we look back to it and think nostalgia. I'm also saying that like Ghibli films are crafted in a way where they very clearly bring out this nostalgic aspect. And once again, that sounds like I'm criticizing it or
Mm-hmm.
I'm making it sound like it's manipulative. But what I'm really trying to say is that it depicts a version of life or a version of society that is so beautiful and so
Mm.
like gorgeous. For example, Kiki's
And
delivery
pure.
service,
Mm.
yeah, it's just if I could live in a world, I would want to live in Kiki's delivery service because it is so beautiful. The skies are always blue. Even rain looks wonderful. And music, everyone is like eating baguettes and eating ham sandwiches. Like everything is just
Yeah.
so pleasant. So
Mm.
that's what I mean by I think Ghibli
Oh, okay.
films are in a way like for example, I don't actually think Kiki's delivery service, sorry, Kiki or the witch that she was quote unquote against, her rival witch, I don't necessarily think they're great characters or the boy that liked Kiki. What I think
Oh, yeah.
was the supreme drive, the main drive of this film was firstly a beautiful visual, secondly, beautiful music, but thirdly, for like 2 hours, we get to jump back into a world that we might have become familiar with when we were children. But even if we weren't, jumping into a world which is so pure and so pleasant, and to me, that is the beauty of Ghibli because I don't think the story or the characters are that engaging. Obviously, there are some such as Mononoke or Spirited Away, which I think are on another level, but the vast majority I think are just nice and pleasant and beautiful. And I'm okay with that. But I don't, to me, that doesn't make it great pieces of art, but very comfortable
Mm.
pieces of art. So, what do you think?
Okay, yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. When we watch any sort of animation, everything is beautiful. I think that that has been, the torch has been passed from Ghibli to. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Makoto Shinkai.
Oh yeah, Weathering
Yeah,
with You slash Your Name.
yeah, Your Name. That other film where he's in love with his teacher.
Garden of
Garden of
Words.
Words. Yes,
That's it.
yeah, that is a beautiful movie as well.
Mhm,
I think though that even though Garden of Words was just like so beautiful and
mhm.
so well animated,
Stunning.
I wasn't as drawn in as with the Ghibli films, which is where I think the power of that nostalgia that you're talking about,
Mhm,
the warm nostalgia that Ghibli brings, that's definitely their mainstay because
for sure.
we're transported into this wonderful world where
Paradise.
everything is peachy. It's almost like if we lived in a Disney world where
For sure.
nothing really goes wrong and everything is beautiful, but not so beautiful. Because I actually think that the Shinkai films they look better, but they're just not as warm.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love looking at it, but I would rather live in, say, Whisper of the Heart world or
Me too, for sure.
probably not the Valley of the Wind. That's a danger zone. But yeah, I think you're right. You're definitely right, and I agree with you in the fact that the nostalgia part it really comes from the setting and not our actual age. Although I do still maintain that when I watch a Mononoke or Howl's Moving Castle or Spirited Away, I watched all three of them like in a row. Um, back when I was 16, I am transported back to that time as well, which is why I really enjoy those three films. Although Howl's Moving Castle is a B tier for me because wait, did I say B tier for Howl's?
I think you did because I had it in
Yeah,
B tier. I think we agreed.
yeah. I think it's just that is a wonderful world, but I think the story for me sort of wasn't as great as the other three. So, but yeah, I definitely agree with the nostalgia part.
And the other reason I say this is not only is its art style, very pleasant, and all the other reasons I said before, like it's quite palatable, so you can show it to your children, and then your children grow up, and then they always think back to that cozy, warm period of time. So not
Mm-hmm.
only do I say it's nostalgic for that reason, I think there is a glorification of 1970s, 1980s Japan in such a nostalgic way, and I'll support my argument that it does really
Mm-hmm.
glorify this, and I don't mean that in a negative way, like it's glorifying it in the sense that it's being manipulative or something, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these Ghibli images, for example, as I was watching Whisper of the Heart recently, I just remember thinking, wait, I've actually seen that image from like lo-fi hip hop videos, or these, yeah, like lo-fi songs, and then you have Ghibli images or clips like superimposed on it that just repeat and repeat. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so effective at creating that warm blanket feeling through just
Mm-hmm.
the colors and sounds. And to me, and I guess this is dependent on what viewer wants from their films. To me, I enjoyed, but it's not what I gravitate towards the most. So yeah, fundamentally, I guess if I was going to go back to my point, I think Miyazaki or Ghibli, I think their films are nostalgic and very beautiful and very good pieces of film. But if I was to compare or introduce another director who, to me, I think is arguably the greatest director, anime director. I think Miyazaki is a great storyteller. But
Mm-hmm.
have you ever watched anything from Satoshi Kon before?
I have. I
Perfect
have.
Blue, Paprika, Millennium Actress. Have you watched any, like which ones have you watched?
Let me see. Just pulling up the list of his works. Oh, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
What? No way. Wait,
So,
Satoshi
wait,
Kon?
wait, wait, wait,
No
wait, wait.
way. He did not direct JoJo's.
1993. It's the original video animation. um,
What?
yeah, okay. Wow. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm a bit of a tangent. Perfect Blue is great. I think that just the just the themes of identity in that film, especially with a female lead and the world that she lives in, and the whole idea of, I think it's perception of reality. I think that is, it's definitely not something that a kid would understand, but it's more like adult, the grown up anime. You know what I mean? They are great, and I think that movie is excellent.
Well, do you agree with my premise that I think, and once again, I will preface this by saying, art is very subjective, but I think Satoshi Kon's his films like Millennium Actress or Perfect Blue, maybe not Princess Mononoke, maybe I don't know, maybe I prefer Perfect Blue over. I'm actually not 100% sure, but I just I just think Satoshi Kon's films are just better pieces of work. What do you think about that?
Okay, do you mean like a more complete package?
Well, to me, I just think they're just much more engaging. For me, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers, Paprika, Perfect Blue, like
Hmm.
uh, just Howl's Moving Castle in comparison to like Millennium Actress is a very pleasant film, but Millennium Actress does things with the animation medium that I've never seen before.
Oh, okay. I think, to answer your question, if I agree, for me, well, coming from my worldview of these anime, I think that they are they're not completely different, but for me, I didn't watch Ghibli and then Perfect Blue with the same aim in mind, if you know what I
Hmm.
mean. So I know that you're quite the art lover. So I think you might be a bit more scrupulous when watching
Oh,
films,
nice
but
word.
okay. Oh wow, are you a word lover as well? Yeah, when I watch Ghibli, I watch it more for the enjoyment of the medium. I mean, like we were talking about, the nostalgic feeling of this perfect world.
Hmm.
But with Satoshi Kon's movies, more planted in reality, and they have much deeper themes. So I can definitely appreciate that as well when I watch them. But that's where I'm coming from. I'm trying to say that it's kind of like apples and oranges, even though they're still both in the same medium.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like comparing Finding Nemo to like Sharknado or something. They're both they're both about fish. They're both CGI, but
Wait,
Finding Nemo
wait,
is
Finding Nemo is CGI? What?
I
uh,
Sharknado's
uh,
not real.
um, there's actually
To
one
me,
more
that's
thing.
how it is. Yeah.
There's one more thing I want to say before we move on to another aspect that and another topic that I wanted to talk about. And I think to me, and maybe this is something I just pulled out of nowhere, but I think Ghibli Ghibli's power also comes from the fact that it's a an Asian export, and when I mean export, I mean cultural export that is widely celebrated and accessible to Western audiences. And I think that's also
Okay.
part of Ghibli's power in the sense that it is one of the few animation studios, and okay, and this is changing more and more with things like Your Name and Mamoru Hosoda, these films and these directors. But Ghibli is so acceptable because it's so pleasant. And if you compare it to other animated films or animated products or franchises, for example, I'm not sure if you've watched Shinchan. It's this like young
Oh, I have
guy.
not.
Search it up. You've. I'm sure you've seen the character Shin Shin
Oh,
dash
Crayon
Chan.
Shinchan.
Yeah.
I
Have
have
you
seen
seen?
him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like he, for example, it's just much weirder to like a Western audience.
Yes.
And I think that's, and this sounds like like a low key criticism. Like Ghibli is only celebrated because it looks a certain way. No, like I'm absolutely not saying that, but I do think a lot of Miyazaki or Ghibli's fame is the fact that it is something that can be accessible or is accessible to the West. So what do you think about that?
I 100% agree. This isn't a knock on Ghibli, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ghibli doesn't really capture the quirky side of Japanese
No,
culture
definitely
at
not.
all. And that's why when people ask if someone asked me, if someone that wasn't familiar with anime asked me about Ghibli films, I would probably say to them, "Oh, they're awesome. They're like the Japanese Disney."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Japanese
Yeah.
Disney is like a key descriptor for Ghibli films because everyone loves Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves Snow White, Cinderella, every sort of wholesome story like that. So when they hear Disney and it's associated with the foreign media, of course they're going to be like, "Oh, it's foreign," but it's also familiar, which is why I think Ghibli has maintained that sort of
Brand.
direction. Yeah, brand. Yeah, that's a good word. Whereas, Crayon Shinchan, the guy is like mooning half the time. It's very quirky. It references as well. I mean, I have seen Crayon Shinchan. I just forgot what we're talking about, but it's definitely more quirky and more cheeky
Mm-hmm.
and a bit of tongue in cheek is what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
say. And Ghibli doesn't really test the waters that way because it's tried and true wholesome storytelling.
Mm.
And I
Yes.
don't think they will ever diverge from that direction that they're heading, which is
Mm-hmm.
to the top. um, but yeah, sometimes I wish that it was quirky. I think that Pompoko, actually, the raccoon dog movie, the
Mm-hmm.
Tanuki movie, it actually
Mm-hmm.
does have elements of that sort of mischief. And this is where, Pompoko is a bit less accessible to Westerners to watch because raccoon dogs traditionally, like even the statues that we saw in Japan, I think we passed by a few where they're wearing, like a rice paddy sort of hat, like the
Mm-hmm.
conical hat.
Mm-hmm.
They have huge testicles.
Oh, I did not remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. You don't expect it, right? But Ghibli deadass animated the balls. Like, they are on every male tanuki. And it's just something that, as a Westerner, when I watched it, I was like, oh, damn. So, yeah. And I think that just by virtue of the characters in Pompoko, they're supposed to be mischievous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why they err more to the side of the Shinchan anime spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the films, they don't have that. They're all quite wholesome, but they're still, serious,
Mm,
which
definitely.
is definitely how I think Disney films are. Like overall, Disney films won't leave you like in tears laughing, right? And I think Ghibli is almost the same.
Yeah, agreed. They really do stick to this quite
Like
traditional
formula.
narrative of the
Mm.
protagonist, which that's actually something I want to go on because its protagonist is actually female, and that in a way flips the script a little. But the hero's journey is quite prevalent in it. So yeah, actually, firstly, before I move on, I just want to recommend Crayon Shinchan. Fierceness that invites the storm to you, Nathan. I guess to my audience members, hey, if you want to watch it, then check it out. But the adult empire strikes back. I'm actually not sure if you've watched that. It's about basically all the parents wishing that Japan would stay in the 20th century. It was released in like 2000 or 2001, just
Hmm.
as we or Japan or the world entered the 21st century, and it's about actually Japanese nostalgia for the past century, the past century. Anyway,
Oh,
check it out.
okay.
It's pretty enjoyable,
It
but
looks wild just
it
from
yeah, it is
the
wild.
the cover. It looks like they're on Rainbow Road from Mario Kart. Okay, they're
There's
wildin'.
they're wild for sure. There's something else I want to bring up, and if you've watched a number of Ghibli films, which we both have, I think we're both around in the double digits or something close to that. It,
Oh yeah, I mean,
oh
I'm
yeah,
not brushing my shoulder off the dust, but like,
hey, I,
you know, if you know, you know, you know.
I am bragging, but you know what I'm saying. I'm putting that work.
Rise and grind, it's Ghibli time.
But if you watched a few Ghibli films, you'll notice some themes, some recurring themes, and you actually pointed out a few. One example is the prevalence of machines, and in particular flying machines. So
Hmm.
I guess I'll throw it to you. I guess, do you notice that, or do you have any comments on the machinery, and also any comments on any other themes or recurring motifs that you've seen?
Yes, definitely. With the machinery angle, I'm just having a look at the list again. So, Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, there's definitely flying machines.
Mm-hmm.
Castle in the Sky, more flying
Mm-hmm.
machines.
Mm-hmm.
Grave of the Fireflies. My Neighbor Totoro, not really a flying machine, but they fly with an umbrella. Kiki's Delivery
Does
Service, The
that count?
Broom.
Does that count if they fly with an umbrella?
It's metal, right? It's a machine. Porco Rosso for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely
definitely.
agree. I think
Wind Rises. I mean, that's the most obvious
yeah.
example.
I thought, I mean, even at that spoiler alert, probably skip the next 10 seconds. End of Howl's Moving Castle. They end up flying in that
Oh, they
giant
do.
castle.
Yeah, they do actually. It's not much
Yeah, I
of a.
think, I guess thematically, in most of the films, the flying machines are a good thing, except for Grave of the Fireflies. But yeah, I think that it can also go the other way with machinery. And I did talk about it earlier, the idea of harmony, not e-harmony, harmony. It's
Clarify.
definitely, yeah, just in case stuttered. There's definitely even, I think the overarching theme in the very first Ghibli movie, Nausicaa, is very similar. Like the humans, they are not living in harmony with these giant bugs.
Mm,
And with, I guess, Totoro as well, that there isn't really a disparity in harmony or anything like that, but the kids learn to love, nature and animals more. And yeah, with Pompoko, there is a clash of ideals between the humans and the big ball raccoons. And Mononoke is the biggest standout for me when it comes to that, when it comes to the idea of harmony. And the introduction of machines to the plot line. I guess not really machines, but technology, even though it's quite primitive, like bombs and gunpowder, that really turned the tide for one side that was in this battle. And I think that at the end of the movie, oh, this is kind of a spoiler alert, Irontown, you know, as it is so named, it reverts back from being a town with no trees. In fact, the town is surrounded by giant tree trunks that have been turned into like pikes almost. At the end of the movie, the forest spirit, falls on the town, and then the greenery just like comes back to the town, and there's
mhm.
plants everywhere. And what really struck me was that Lady Eboshi, I guess she's the main villain. She's she lost an arm in that battle, and she says to the townspeople, it's time to learn to live in harmony with nature. And that really struck me as a young lad. Yeah, so I think overarching for me, the most prominent theme in all these movies is the idea of, harmony. How about you, man?
For sure, there's definitely the aspect of harmony, and you touched upon harmony in nature. There's something
Mm.
else I just want to talk about in terms of machines.
Oh yeah.
So this is, I think I read this somewhere, and I found it very, very interesting. So in Ghibli films, if you watched a number of them, you can tell that there are certain machines which are certain pieces of technology which are good. For example, flying is often something good, and I often
Mm.
find Miyazaki, and this touches upon my previous comment of his films being very nostalgic. There is a real nostalgic element to the technology that he uses, because it's like essential technology, but it's not like invasive technology in the same sense like your mobile phone is. So it's
Also,
it's
like
very
Zuckerberg,
essential,
him.
like a car or like a boat or
Mm.
something. But at the same time, what I found very interesting in this article, Miyazaki elevates technology that we see simplistic, and by we I mean like younger people, younger generation, because we grew up, with mobile phones and other microwaves and stuff like that. Miyazaki glorifies like an older set of technology, but
Hmm.
in many ways, like the article is asking, or just getting us to question, like, why does he glorify older pieces of technology? Is it simply because he grew up during that period? And does that in many ways, is his demonization of like more modern technology as whether it's invasive or whether it's like not necessary, taking away from the simplicity of life. There was questions like, well, for example, if you take Miyazaki's love of like motor engines, like cars or planes, would someone growing up in the 60s or 50s look at his obsession with planes and think, well, you took away my ox cart or something? So there's this curious
Wow.
question of like when Miyazaki does elevate planes and stuff, and he presents other pieces of technology as opposing or in contrast to the simplicity of the planes, there's a question like how much of that is contextual.
Yeah. We're going deep tonight.
Damn, man, that was all you said. Yeah, yeah, man. just say pass if you
Ditto.
can't say. All right, man. I guess I'm doing this alone.
Real spit. What was the question?
All right, man. All right, don't worry about that.
Sorry about my monologue, man. My soliloquy. I think that he definitely does, as you say, demonize modern technology because. But I think he does that though to evoke even more nostalgia.
It's a
for,
nostalgia merchant.
For like. Yeah, that should be the title of the podcast. Hayao Miyazaki hyphen nostalgia merchant. And then
fuck around,
semicolon,
man. Say less.
A discussion. This guy handing it out, man. I mean, my prime example of nostalgia, for lack of a better word, is in Kiki, right? The boy who was interested in Kiki, he's a bit annoying. I don't even know his name.
He's
stripy shirt, glasses boy. He tries to build a plane using a bicycle. And it's one of those like mom bikes, I think is the official term. It's just one of those, daily commuter bikes that they ride in Japan, I'm pretty sure, or it's like a fixie or something like that. And he puts this absurdly big propeller on the front. And that to me, it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, okay, this is old technology. But also, even back in those days, that would never happen. Like, this is so fantastical and so olden time that it has its own charm, I think. And it really compounds on, the layers and layers and layers of this nostalgia, this warm nostalgia. Yeah. The N-word, man.
I was about to say that, and I was like, wait, that's
nostalgia is an offensive word from now on. I just don't want to say it. Synonyms for nostalgia. Here we go.
Reminisce.
Yeah, reminiscent.
Yeah, okay. Reminiscent. Doesn't sound as well.
Sentiment.
Oh, sentimental.
I think that's a better word. Yeah, I think that the use of the glorification of this sort of bygone era of technology in all of Miyazaki's films, it makes me sentimental.
It does exactly what it planned out to do.
Because, it does evoke the idea of, life without technology, without computers. Life can still be fun. Life is still wonderful when you strip away the layers of technology that, we're buried under. I don't think that's probably what he was going for. I think he just likes old stuff because he is old. It's probably sentimental for him. But for us, it has a completely different meaning. And this is all based on the assumption that he just likes old stuff. I think that for us, like I was saying, we see all this old stuff, which we didn't even grow up with, but we somehow are sentimental for. I'm not sure if you feel the same. Do you?
I do. I think the bicycle example was great in the sense that it is so obviously comedic that like it would never happen, but it's almost implying that simplicity is enough to get you through something. That simple designs, and willpower and joy and youth is really all you need to pass the time or to be successful. And on that,
Mm.
that's another common theme that I wanted to mention. There's a lot of young female characters who are just traversing towards adulthood or entering their teenagehood. And one example that comes to mind, really, you could select any film, and like that would be true in 85% of Ghibli films. But I think
Mm.
Totoro is a great example of that, where, as you said,
Mm.
the young female character is just learning to deal with ideas of life and death. And that
Mm.
is a common theme as well in
Yeah.
a lot of Ghibli films. And yeah, I guess I'll throw that to you if you want to have any other comments on that. Because the last thing I want to end with is Ghibli's influence on animation, and have they affected other brands, or have they affected how we see Japan or how we see animation? So yeah, I guess take it away.
Okay, that's a yeah. That's it's a lot to take in right there. But if I get what you mean, I definitely agree with the central themes of growing up and coping with they're not really problems, but facets of life that young kids they're not ready for, but these characters
Mm.
suddenly thrown into. And I think that it is wonderful that they do that because it it teaches young people who do watch the movies, even though they might not fully understand it, they can look back on it with sentiment and when they're going through the rough patches, they can at least not project but align themselves with the characters and be more in the universe.
Dude, it's
So I
straight up
think
projection,
related
man.
relatability is
Dude,
major key.
dude, I'm letting you know. When I watched Whisper of the Heart, I was like, man, this young teenage girl go bumps into this like book nerd who also makes violins in his spare time, wants to travel to Italy, and he's
Well,
like
that
dashingly
yeah.
cool. I'm like,
Mm.
that's literally
That's
every
that's not
high
me.
schooler's dream. That's like every high
Yeah.
schooler's dream.
Yeah. Actually, I think you mentioned it before, the lo-fi sort of videos. One of the lo-fi videos that I watched, not recently, but it's just stuck in my mind, is it's a really long, like hour-long video of a compilation of lo-fi songs, and the animation of the video is actually the guy just fixing his violin, and it's just
Mm,
looped,
mm.
looped and looped and looped and looped. And if that doesn't do more for Ghibli's brand, I think they should honestly make like a lo-fi movie,
Oh,
um,
100%.
or they should at least animate like some sort of lo-fi like
Video,
loop, like
yeah.
like the girl
100.
studying. I mean, I don't even
Yeah.
think that is.
It
I don't,
was
is it?
inspired by Whisper. Like there was
Oh,
a
okay,
scene
yeah.
there's a scene when she starts writing the book where she's in her desk and it's getting all messy, and
Mm.
I remember pausing and thinking like, wow, this is actually really similar to the Lo-Fi Girl,
Yeah, our favorite.
our favorite.
Um,
Also, the
yeah.
the male protagonist of Whisper, the guy with the violin, we
Mhm.
look alike. I'm just saying.
Are you projecting?
I think I am, man.
You're projecting, man. Are you okay? This is cry for help. Listeners, get in contact with Stanley, please. Um,
Please check up on me, please.
yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about Ghibli's influence. So I'm not sure
Hmm.
if you've watched this film. You probably haven't. It's a Chinese animation film. It's called Big Fish in Begonia. I
Okay.
didn't. How do I say this? It's gonna sound really bad. I actually hated the film. So, but but that's not the point I'm bringing it up. The point I'm bringing it up is because the animation was beautiful, and it was so
Mm.
reminiscent of Ghibli.
Mm.
My reasons for disliking it was actually a very convoluted plot, which is
Okay.
unfortunate. But the style, the aesthetics was stunning, and it was very obviously Ghibli inspired. And even things like Wolf Children, which I think it
Mm.
doesn't seem
Oh,
too
yeah.
Ghibli esque, but I think there is Ghibli influence. So yeah, Nathan, what do you think the influence of Ghibli is around animation around the world?
Mate, like I think that they changed the game when they came on the scene in what 86. 84 with Nausicaa. I think that a lot of I don't think animation studios who do like TV shows, I don't think that they are really part of the same sphere as Ghibli films. But animation studios, when they do like a feature length movie, I think that and also if the theme is about growing up, or if it's sort of centered around a child, 100% Ghibli is the benchmark that they would measure off. Because I'm just when you mentioned Wolf Children, I was like, oh, Mamoru Hosoda, he's done so many other films like Summer Wars,
which was great. I'm a big fan
that
of
was
Summer
great. I
Wars.
love that.
I'm not a big fan of his other stuff. Like I wasn't a big fan of Girl Who Left Through Time. I'm not a big fan
Okay,
of what's that?
The Boy and
It's
the
like
Beast.
yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that.
Mm.
But I love Summer Wars.
Yeah. I think that Summer Wars really, it's so wholesome, right? It really captures the sentiment around around family, around the value of family, around young love as well.
Or
And
Ghibli, like at this point, Ghibli brands.
yeah, I think so. I think that Hosoda has definitely been influenced by Ghibli. And I think that Shinkai's movies, to an extent, you could say that they do. I mean, this isn't a knock on him, but a lot of his films are about falling in love with an older woman. But that's a conversation for another
Man,
another
Shinkai, reach
time.
out to me, bro.
He's hurting, man.
Man, I feel you, man. You hurting.
I see. I would definitely say that Ghibli has inspired many studios with their style and even their themes. I'm not sure if you saw it ages ago, but Ghibli sort of, I mean, they're already in the Western sphere now, but The Simpsons did a Ghibli
What?
opening. Yeah.
What?
I'm not kidding. Like,
I'm
I
not sure
don't
if I
think it
should
was,
be impressed or like
I don't
upset.
think it was, I don't think it was hand animated or anything like that, but they referenced literally
No
like every
face.
Ghibli movie in the opening sequence
Cool.
for The
I actually have to
Simpsons.
check this out
It was
straight
actually a
after this.
really good homage. I would highly recommend it. It only goes for like 30 seconds, which is the opening for The Simpsons. But yeah, it's just wonderful. And to me, that really showed that, anime or Japanese media is really sort of edging more and more into the world sphere. And
For sure.
I'm not Japanese, but I'm appreciative because at least it reflects more diverse offerings from the rest of the world. I'm sure there's many Chinese animated films and Korean films and even like Southeast Asian. I'm sure there's a lot of them that I haven't seen yet. But the fact that the West has taken so positively to Ghibli and Your Name as well, Weathering with You, I think that's a good sign for the furthering of Asian created media. And I think Ghibli is definitely to thank for a lot of that, because I mean, we have a mutual friend who I will not name, and they recently got a calcifer tattoo.
I actually don't know who you're talking about, but okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably tell you afterwards. But yeah, I was like, they are
Marco?
true blue, like Western as you get, like, and they got a calcifer tattoo.
Wow.
Calcifer is the flame from House Moving Castle, for those that don't know. And yeah, that just struck me as odd. I don't know why. I was kind of protective in my heart. I was like, hey, that's mine. But I think that the fact that it's reaching the Western sphere is just awesome. Yeah, and like I said, Ghibli it's a good starting point. Like you were saying at the start, it's a good starting point for people to get more well acquainted with the format.
For sure. And I still stand by the comment I said earlier. I wouldn't classify the majority of Ghibli films as great or exceptional,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think they are very effective, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but very effective in evoking certain emotions and really getting you. It's like a warm blanket, and once again, that's not an insult. But yeah, cool. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks for jumping on and thanks for sharing your thoughts. Honestly, we could have deep dived into any single film, but I thought firstly it would just be more fun if we just talk about all films in general, and because we've watched a few, we could jump around here and there. And I've always found talking about the big picture, so like Ghibli as a whole, or like the cultural influence or the philosophy behind it, just a little more interesting than any specific film. So yeah, thanks for jumping
Definitely.
on. And I guess we have to, I'll get you on some other time to do the ramen or the Japan podcast. But yeah, we'll talk soon. But if you have any other things you want to say to your audience, this is your chance.
I just want to say shout out to all the people that worked on the album. Shout out my
Ending.
cousin Ray Ray. Shout out LP if you listen. Shout out Sarah. Y'all my
Are
dogs.
you serious? Are you turning the End My Podcast into a hip hop video? No, we're ending it. Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. If that doesn't sum up the whole chat that we had just then, I don't know what does. But yeah, thank you for having me on the pod as well. I really appreciate your time.
All right, take it easy. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Safety Last with Stanley Ching. If you enjoyed this, then please leave a rating or a comment. I hope you're leaving with a new idea, and make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and other places that can be found in the description.